Welcome to the PreSales Podcast. I'm Mattie Stremic, and I'm hosting our brand new series on becoming a world-class solutions consultant. In this 6-part series, we'll unpack real-life stories and get actionable insights from pre-sales leaders, managers, and ICs that know what it means to go above and beyond in their pre-sales and solution roles. In today's episode, I'll be speaking with Munir Hussein, Partner Technology Strategist at ServiceNow, on the topic of pursuing excellence. This is part 1 of our 6-part series of becoming a world-class solutions consultant. I hope you enjoy.
Hi there, my name is Yuji Higashi, co-founder of PreSales Collective, and I have big news to share with you if you're a pre-sales leader or an individual contributor early in your career. We recently launched 2 training and enablement programs aimed at helping you take your career to the next level. Both programs were created by pre-sales leaders with input from dozens of SC veterans across our community. Now, we'll be running cohorts each month, so if you're interested in participating, visit us at presalescollective.com/enablement to submit an inquiry, and we'll send you details about each program, including this curriculum and schedule. We look forward to working with you on growing your career and being part of your career journey. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Welcome to the PreSales Podcast, Munir. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I am so excited to have you on the podcast today, and I'm excited to hear that this is actually the first podcast that you've ever done. Is that right?
Sharing is caring. So I'm happy to share and excited and nervous all at the same time.
Well, that is great. This episode is really interesting because this is ultimately laying the foundation for our entire series of becoming a world-class solutions consultant. And I'm so excited that you're here today to talk about pursuing excellence in your role. But before we get into all the topics that we're going to discuss today, I would love to know a little bit more about your role and hear a little bit more about some exciting news at ServiceNow.
My role within ServiceNow is to make the world work better. So I work with our global strategic alliance partners, and that is in our various workflows, whether it's technology, customer success, industry specific, or operational excellency across the board to put the world to work. That means being able to save money on the bottom line, as well as improve the experiences on the experience layer. I am incredibly excited to be part of ServiceNow, and our mission statement is to be the defining solution consulting organization of the 21st century. That means to enhance the lives of our employees and customers by engaging in new and collaborative ways, bringing ideas to life through innovative experiences.
A fun fact for those that are listening, we actually have 5 PreSales Academy grads that have landed at ServiceNow. So I am a huge fan.
I'm also a huge fan of untraditional talent. That is someone who is qualified in so many ways. They have the opportunity to show not just their potential, but put that learning that they've done into practice. So very big fan of the PreSales Academy.
Well, we're excited to have our 5th one hired there. Hopefully some more. Maybe one of them will find themselves promoted onto your team one day.
That's the hope.
Getting into our topic for today, we really want to unpack what does it look like to pursue excellence within the solutions space. So I'd really love to know, Munir, how do you define excellence and what does excellence look like to you?
When I introduce myself internally and externally to clients, I let them know that my job is to care, because nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. From that, you're able to do certain things which define excellence for me. Those things are being valuable instead of just valued, being an internal center of influence, and continually learning more to earn more by copying, changing, and creating.
One of the things that you mentioned is becoming a center of influence. Can you unpack that for me?
Yeah, we're the storytelling team. And as you gather clients in front of the fire to tell some stories, it is beneficial to bring credibility, authenticity, and a level of interest to the conversations that you're having with them. And in order to do so, a solution consultant or an SE is the embodiment of the Medici effect. That is taking different disciplines and being at the cross section of each and being able to tell a very relatable story depending on where the buyer is in their journey.
I love the way that you broke that down. I think storytelling is so important in the solution space. When you think about the activities that are most important to master in pre-sales, what are those core activities?
Oh, there's so many. The relationship with your counterparts within the business are very important. Your job hinges on the success of your organization. So if you're looking at a successful SC, they are known by their reputation, but they manage their character. And what I mean by that is they are very firm on their expectations that they manage, as well as how and when they communicate, which is why I share personally, whenever I meet an AE, 3 ground rules that I have found beneficial, not only for me, but for them and the clients as well. And this is a means of shaving seconds off your day, but days off your year, right? If you can collaborate better, then your performance increases because your performance is limited by your process. So the process I share with them is, hey, nice to meet you. My job is to care. The 3 rules that you should be aware of, and I don't call them rules, I'm just saying, hey, how we collaborate better. The 3 things you should know about working with me are early and often. Let me know if there's something that needs prioritization. Bow, and check my calendar. And the bow is background. How did we get here? Agenda. Who are we talking to and about what? And outcome. What's the expected outcome of this activity, of this discussion, conversation, or presentation? And if I have that, then I can adequately prepare for the upcoming showcase of our solution. And if you give me only a limited amount of time, I'll deliver a bronze medal. If you give me some time and some more context, I can hit the client with a silver medal. And if you properly plan, prepare, practice, and get ready for the client conversation together, then we can deliver a gold medal.
What an interesting framework. I'm curious to how AEs react when you actually walk through that with them.
When I share that with them, at first they go, okay, I am a limited resource within the organization, which means I ruthlessly monotask. I can only pay attention to one thing at a time. And in order to have my attention, we operate with social capital. Here is how we work better together. So the reactions that I've gotten, covering anywhere from 1 to over a dozen AEs at the same time, is this helps me help you to help me. I appreciate you letting me know, because I feel like although there are other resources that you are supporting, we have a one-to-one relationship.
That AE partnership is, I think, no doubt one of those core aspects of the role that you really want to master. And I love this framework. And I think it's something that a lot of folks can actually take it and replicate with their AEs and provide that feedback and really build that partnership. What other activities do you see are really important to master in the pre-sales space?
If you think about the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, there's only so much space in your calendar. So we as SCs are very self-regulated. We determine what takes priority and what needs to be done for the short term, midterm, and long term. So an actionable tip that I have for the audience is audit your calendar. This week, just forget about it. Let's look at next week. If you think about your calendar as the trunk of your car, if you plan to pack the things that you need to get to where you want to go, then that'll accelerate your journey. And if you don't properly plan, it might get filled with junk or empty space that'll slow you down on your journey. So my actionable tip is check your calendar and plan for the things that'll help you to improve in the things that you're doing right now, support the business to make the road smoother for those that come after you, as well as practice. There is no amount of practice that is good enough, but the more the better.
Absolutely. Practice is so important and it makes us so much better. This is something that I think we often forget to block time for, and we allow our calendars to get filled up, and then we end up preparing at night or early mornings. So I think that that's such a great takeaway of really prioritizing your calendar, auditing it, and blocking the appropriate time. Now, whether you're a leader, a manager, or an IC, if you're coming on to a new team or a new company or working with a new technology, what do you recommend for folks that are new and wanting to hit the ground running in their role to really make a bigger impact sooner?
I'd like to go back to that statement that I made earlier about delivering metals, and that's the bronze, silver, and gold. The bronze medal is telling a good story. The silver medal is telling a great story. And a gold medal is someone else telling a great story about you. The goal and objective of every conversation you have with a client is to deliver gold medals. So whether you're brand new to the organization or you've been around for over a decade or two, it is beneficial to take a look at your organization and say, hey, who is presenting not even just the whole story, but a chapter really well within their demonstration, and copy it. And when I say copy, I don't just mean, hey, listen to a recording. I mean full on copy their best practice, because it's working. It's tied to revenue, it's tied to attention, and it's tied to their ability to present the solution. So go ahead and copy it. That's record it, listen to it, play it back, transcribe it, mute it, and try and talk through the solution yourself without any audio, and be able to master copying best practices continuously. And what you do after you copy, then you change and make adjustments that fit your style, your audience, or your industry, and tailor specifically to what would be most beneficial to your clients. So copy, then change. And eventually, because all great artists are thieves, you have the understanding of what is working well. You have an understanding of what works well for you. And then you identify a gap and say, well, this would work well as well. So you copy, change, and create something that has value to yourself, your organization, and your clients continuously.
I think this is such a good point, because oftentimes, especially when we start a new role, we often think that we have to come in with all the bells and whistles, when what I'm hearing from you is that we need to identify the giants that already exist within the organization and copy and learn from them, and then use that as a framework to then put your own stamp on it. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So that sounds like what we should do when starting a new role. But what about, where do you think SEs go wrong when ramping up at a new organization?
So there's no shortage of intelligence when it comes to being an SE. However, being able to convey that information in a way that's digestible and palatable to your audience is really important. You can know these things, but understanding how they're conveyed is really important. And I use Voltron as an example. We talked about the Medici effect before. Voltron's this show where there's 5 mechanical lines that together combine to be greater than the sum of their parts. And why is that important for SEs? Is because if you look at the different types of SEs that exist, you've run into them time and time again. There's marketing, success, product, compliance, and revenue SEs. And I'd like to go through the downfalls or the weaknesses of just being a function-specific SE before I talk about their strengths and how they can combine to be truly exceptional. For the marketing, you've seen the marketing SE, they've always got bundles of energy, right? They're outgoing, they have a high level of interest, however, they're breadth, not depth. For the folks that align with customer success, the success SEs, they're always on call and they do a lot of things that are valued. Hey, thank you for doing these things, but not necessarily valuable to their business. For the compliance SCs, and compliance is finance, legal, operations, compliance, and security. So I boil it down into compliance. They're like a back office lawyer. Give me an RFP and I'll see you in 3 to 5 weeks. However, their timing is entirely different than the need of the business. For product SEs, they're often unaware of their talk time. They can go real deep, but they don't tie it back to the why your client is speaking to you, right? The geek that speaks. And for the revenue SE, they have a quick turnaround time, but they lean really heavily on their credentials as opposed to tailoring the conversation to their specific audience. So what you want to do is be a combination of all of these various departments. And the way to do so is another actionable tip I'd like to share. People follow, for the most part, the rule of reciprocity. If you tell someone thank you, they'll at least say you're welcome. If you look at each one of the departments within your organization, regardless of the size, and you identify something that someone did in marketing, customer success, or learning and development, compliance, product and engineering, and revenue, whether it's operations, sales, or leadership, and you find a way to tell them thank you. Hey, this collateral, this activity, this note, this memo, it helped me in this client conversation. And when you do that and you identify around 3 in each department, at least 1 or 2 of them will come back and say, hey, you want to have a conversation? Tell me more about how it helped you. And you'll go, absolutely. You show up and share your perspective from being an SE, and they will share theirs. And that lends to a better discussion when you're in front of the client, because you, as an SC, are a master of listening and curating the stories of your organization to share externally so that interest turns into a purchase.
Wow. This really got me thinking. I'm curious, which of those do you most relate to?
There are certain days where I feel like I don't relate to anything and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I go, hold on, wait a minute. I've done this before. And yes, worst case scenario, I get laughed at and they don't purchase. And that happens 4 out of 5 times because the average seller closes 1/5 of their deals. So if I can show up and I can make a difference, then I feel that I have done something beneficial, because the most beneficial person is the one that's most beneficial to others. So to answer your question of which one I lean to, I'm going to share the strengths of each, and hopefully I am a combination on some days at the very least. So the strengths of the marketing SC, they're always on brand and they convert awareness to attention. The success SCs, they can have insight from the current deployments and they review any support that's needed asynchronously so that it can say, hey, how can we scale the buyer enablement journey? For the product SC, tying the objective to a specific challenge that you uniquely solve with data points and use cases in order to have relevant information for the audience and act as a feedback loop for product. Product loves hearing the voice of the customer, and you can be that intermediary. For compliance, keeping a pulse on all the content that's available within the library and also continuously adding to that content. And revenue, that direct line to leadership with thorough understanding of the sales process and being able to prioritize by dollar value, by stage, and saying, hey, here are the best practices as we go into our forecast. And you can sit down and noodle and doodle with your AE on how best to overcome hurdles within the cycle. So leveraging the strength of each one of those to build and maintain relationships within the business, operating on social capital and being the center of influence to share great stories that are told on your behalf externally. So the one that I have aligned to previously and currently, it continuously changes. And the reason I say that is I've been told by my sales counterparts, I don't have one SE. I have a chameleon that's able to change depending on the needs of the business.
That's amazing. And I think that's the goal. I think that's what we should aim for, is being able to pivot and adapt based on what's in front of us. I really want to go back to something that you've said twice so far. You've brought up the idea of activities that are valued versus valuable. Can you unpack that for the listeners?
Well, if you shoot an arrow and it hits a tree and you get really excited about it, you're like, hey, check out this tree. I'm precisely where I want to be. That tree, I hit it. And then you get asked, hey, great job shooting that arrow. You did a great job. That's precision. How do we track that back to revenue? Because we can manage what we measure. So we wanted you to shoot that target, Munir, as an SE. We're more concerned with accuracy. And you go, oh, but I just spent so many weeks working on shooting that arrow. Yes, that is valued to the business. The activity that you do as an SE is always valued. However, unless you can tie it back to revenue or supporting an improvement that's measurable within one of those business functions, then it's not valuable. And if you shoot that same arrow and you don't know exactly where you land, but you can measure the distance towards the target, then you say, that activity is valuable to the business, because we could say around where you landed, what the delta is, and then work on that delta. It's a difference between looking at where you have done your work and where and who benefits from the work that you're doing. So focus on the things that are valuable instead of valued. And the key metric is, how can you measure the activity that you're doing and track it back to improving the metrics of yourself, your team, another function, or the organization as a whole, and ultimately give a better experience to your clients.
This is really interesting. Can you give me some examples of valuable pre-sales activities?
If you take a look at everything that a person in pre-sales does, right? There's no shortage of job titles that are available to look at, but every single one of them does three very specific things. They define, develop, and deliver a compelling story, right? We're the storytelling team. So the activities that are valuable when it comes to the definition is learning and enabling others on your team. When it comes to the development, it is something that is tied to a specific objective, such as an opportunity or building towards future value that you're going to have within the marketplace. And the delivery is the tip of the iceberg. It is, hey, here are the live conversations that I'm having and the activities that I do in order to prepare for that live conversations are always valuable. So I use the 2-4-6 framework whenever I get told, hey, we have a demonstration coming up. It is, in order to have a good conversation, I need about 2 hours to prepare, pre-blocked on my calendar. If I want to tell a great story, then I block around 4 hours. That's 2 hours one day and an hour the next day, and then an hour right before the conversation itself. And if I want to deliver an exceptional story that is told by others, then I block 6 hours, 2, 1, and 1, leading up to the conversation itself. And sometimes you don't use all of that time. It gets filled with other things. However, the more you prepare and the more you document your preparation process for others to leverage along the way, that is valuable versus valued of, hey, I saw and identified a gap and I want to work on it. However, I can't tie it back to a specific objective or measurable outcome within the business. I just think it's cool to work on.
So how do you prioritize your time between valuable and valued activities?
It comes down to the things that you are measured on, and you have to ask yourself, who benefits? If it is me personally that benefits, that is great. If it is my leadership or sales or another function, that's even greater. And if it's my client and tied back to all those things that my team is measured on, then you can say, hey, this is valuable. However, I have been told within my career, and I have seen others within theirs, not be able to take feedback well. And I go, Well, no one told us. No one told us how to take feedback. No one told us how to ask for it. So when asking for feedback, it is, hey, I'm doing this. And the reason I'm doing it is because of that. What would you change? And based upon that feedback, you go problem, action, outcome. And the response to that feedback is you return to that person that gave you that information. You go, hey, here was the problem. Here was the action that I took based on your guidance. And here's the new outcome. And if it is a priority for others, especially within sales leadership, then it is a priority for you. And if it's not, then you need to determine with all the spinning plates, what needs to have a plate that you escalate, a plate that you delegate, or a plate that can wait. And unless you're continuously doing that within your day, your week, your month, your quarter, then you focus on the wrong activities for the wrong reasons, as opposed to acting upon feedback for the right things in the right places.
What a great framework for dividing up your activities and really thinking through your prioritization. I love that.
Well, it's a constant ranking system because you're pulled in so many directions. You want to go, hey, I want to make sure that I do the best job possible. But in order to do that, I've got to do all these things. Well, there's no shortage of learning and enablement for me to do. I've got to go through 80 hours of learning and development before I can do my first demo, which is tomorrow. so you go, how do I properly prepare, right? And the thing that I would really like to share with folks is that there is a difference between quantity and quality of your learning journey. And what I mean by that is I share a 30-1-3-10-30 framework, which is, hey, if you have an hour to present, can you tell that same story in 30 minutes? Great. Can you tell the same story in 10 minutes? Okay, not bad. You're cutting out a lot of things. Can you tell the same story in 3 minutes? All right. It's more of an introduction, high level. Can you tell the same story in 1 minute? All right. It's just a summarization and the highlights. Can you say it in 30 seconds? And if you can identify which points you want to emphasize within your conversation, then you can build out a 30-second, 1 minute, 3 minute, 10-minute, or 30-minute talk track based upon the important points of emphasis you want to have in your demonstration. Because it's never happened that sales has been a noisy neighbor that shares way too many slides and goes, hey, we're here for an hour discussion. You got 12 minutes. And you go, oh, well, I dedicated all this time to preparing a great presentation, but now it feels rushed in front of the client. I don't want them to feel that it's rushed. I want them to feel as if their time is valuable because it's valuable to me. And in order to properly prepare, I practiced quality instead of quantity. And if I have that same story in a 3-1-3-10-30 framework, it doesn't matter how much time I have, I can adjust and still deliver the key points that I wanted to make.
A common theme that I'm hearing is coming back to that million aspect of being able to adapt both in the way that you approach your role, but also with customers in storytelling. Would you say that adaptability is really important for solutions professionals?
Yes. However, before adaptability is possible, it goes back to that copying, changing, and creating. If you show up with ego to the Zoom meeting or to the door in a real life conversation, others feel it, right? You want to be an ideal team player, which is hungry, humble, and smart. The combination of those things is what makes you have the ability to be adaptable. Because if you think that you're the best, well, perhaps you are in your given space, but look at other industries, other companies, or even within your own that are ahead of you in their journey and learn something from them. And if you think you don't belong here, look at others that are behind you in their journey, that are starting their transition or just getting ramped up. And if you think you're right where you need to be, then find someone to grow with, to compete with, to have some healthy competition so that you can go on that journey with someone to learn from, to teach, and to grow with.
You hit on so many core aspects of what it means to actually pursue excellence in this space. Before we close out, I really would love to know, how have you seen that within your own pre-sales journey? You know, how did you get where you are today, and how do you approach pursuing excellence?
I've had no shortage of odd jobs, and one of them was working at a restaurant that I couldn't afford to eat at. And what you do when you are working from paycheck to paycheck is you pick up extra shifts. So I said, hey, I could wash some dishes. And I was told, hey, yeah, we've got some dishes. So I'm chatting with the chef, and she goes, one day you're going to get paid to tell stories. And I go, well, one day I'm going to be able to afford to eat at this restaurant. As for right now, I'm just an underwater ceramic technician. That was the fanciest title I could get, right? So I did actually end up going back and being able to afford a meal, brought my family to that restaurant, and I was overjoyed by it. And the reason I share that is because I consider myself untraditional talent, someone who did not start right out of college in sales and IT. However, the perspective that I bring and the way that I show up is a reflection of my willingness to understand what drives the buyer experience, to provide actionable insights, to share with others in their journey, as well as to continually get better every day. You want to learn faster than the rate of your competition. So I'm going to yada, yada, yada over a large portion of my story to when I was working in business development. And I got an opportunity after 6 months to interview for an SE. I didn't know what that was. What is an SE? Well, it's the team that tells stories. I go, oh yeah, I could do that. The first time I interviewed, I got rejected for not being technical enough. The second time I interviewed, I got rejected for being overprepared. And the third time I interviewed, I got a phone call from my boss who let me know that she did not want to hire me, but got so many phone calls about how I would be the right person for the job. And she instilled in me a desire for mastery by understanding what's important to others, focused on allowing me to operate autonomously within my business, managing the activities I do and being held accountable for myself before I'm held into account by the business, and a sense of purpose in saying, hey, it's not about where you start your journey. It's what you do with each step of it in order to build towards something greater. So I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity.
I love that he actually went back to the restaurant that you used to work at. I think that is amazing. And I love the way that you have just approached that it's about hard work and humility and learning that mastery. I think that is so important. So to wrap us up, Munir, what do you recommend for those that are listening to this podcast? What should they leave this episode and go do today to have a bigger impact in their role?
I'm going to share some personal advice and some professional advice. And pardon me if it doesn't apply to you. Advice is like food. I just want to see you fed. The personal advice is, we used to live in a world where 9 to 5 was the yoke and everything outside of that was our life. And nowadays it's just scrambled eggs. So find a way to have balance, because you got to take care of yourself. If you do that, that will shine through in your conversations. The employee experience and the customer experience are one and the same. They're a total experience. As for the professional advice, determine what type of SC you are and what kind you want to be. Understand what others are measured on and focus on activities that are valuable instead of valued. Hold yourself accountable before you're taken into account. Build your internal center of influence by finding ways to thank others in other departments and receiving feedback from various functions within the business to share and gather perspectives. And every single day, find a way that you can copy, change, and create by leaning into your strengths and reduces by leaning into your strengths and reducing any weaknesses that you have.
Wow. Munir, I can't thank you enough for joining me here today and just sharing your perspective, your expertise, and your lessons learned along the way. This has been such an incredible episode and the perfect one to launch off our series. I feel like you have teed us up perfectly for our next episode on building meaningful relationships. Thank you again for joining me here today.
Thank you, and keep building.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining for another episode of the PreSales Podcast. Munir did an incredible job of outlining what it means to pursue excellence. I would encourage you to identify what most resonated with you today and go try it out in your role and take one step closer to becoming a world-class solutions consultant. If you were recently impacted by a reduction in force or are open to work, please check out our pre-sales job board and post your profile into our candidate database. We want to do everything we can to support you in landing your next role. On the flip side, if you want to access incredible talent, please share your open roles and check out our candidate database. You can find all of this at presalescollective.com/connect #hire. Thank you so much and see you next time.